After 12 days of war between Iran and Israel, the two sides are in ceasefire now. What does this ceasefire mean for Iran, for Israel, for the United States? Is this the end of this conflict? What does it mean for Iranian people? And what does it mean for the Iranian nuclear program, its missile program, and its proxies in the region? I'll ask these questions and more from the Israeli ambassador to the United States, Michael Leiter. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Thanks indeed to accept our invitation, especially during these extraordinary circumstances. It's difficult to believe it's in less than 2 weeks, just 2 days before the Iranian foreign minister was about to meet with the American envoy, Steve Witkoff, to talk about Iranian nuclear program for the 6th time. Just 2 days before that, in a surprise attack, Israel hit multiple IRGC headquarters and Iranian nuclear facilities and continued to bombard several of IRGC facilities in a wave of attacks that many, at least in Iran, translated into a potential regime change. I think everyone probably has been surprised in the past few hours when the President of the United States announced that there will be a ceasefire. Were you surprised, Mr. Ambassador? Were you anticipating the ceasefire?
I'll tell you, I came to Washington on January 27th, and there hasn't been one day where I haven't been surprised. My predecessor told me, I said, what's the best piece of advice you can give me? And he said, buckle up. So what do you mean, buckle up? And then I figured it out. You're on a roller coaster, and the only difference between Washington during the Trump administration and a roller coaster is that the roller coaster, you know where the twists and turns are coming. And here in Washington, at the present time, you just don't know when the roller coaster is going to go sideways, and you've got to hold on. So I think we saw it coming because we accomplished the vast majority of our goals, our military goals. And that's diminishing to the point of elimination of the path to a nuclear bomb and the proliferation of ballistic missiles. I mean, we know now that the ultimate plan of the Ayatollah and the IRGC was to produce 300 ballistic missiles a month. That's 3,500 a year. In 3 years, it would be 10,000 ballistic missiles. Now, we saw just this morning what one ballistic missile can do when it hits even a secure room. Killed a whole family of 4 people. And there is a statement by the Supreme Leader in which he says, what are the Israelis going to do if we fire thousands of ballistic missiles, even without a nuclear bomb? They'll die. So the issue of ballistic missiles is very high on our agenda, and we have degraded that capacity to a very large extent, almost in total. And therefore, our war aims have been achieved.
It's not eliminated, though, is it?
You know, eliminated is a big word. Obliterated is a big word. You know, we can't get into the picayune of what exactly, you know, obliterated means. You know, if somebody still has a missile in his garage, is that obliterated? We've decimated the capacity to inflict tremendous damage on Israel. There's a big question about intention. I mean, you know, the present leadership has said so many times that the ultimate agenda is to destroy Israel. Now, you know, for us, the most important lesson of the Holocaust is that when somebody says they intend to destroy you, believe them. So we take the Ayatollah without a patronizing attitude. We take him at face value. If this is what he says, this is what he means. And we've got to act in order to protect our country. We're a tiny country. You know, I think geographically Iran is about 75 times the size of Israel, right? You're something like the 13th or 14th largest geography in the world, all right? We're a tiny little country, size of New Jersey. except there's a big difference between New Jersey and Israel, because New Jersey is kind of roundish. It's like a hamburger. And Israel is like a hot dog, right? It's very easy to cut it in half. So we have to protect ourselves. We don't have a second chance. One of the former leaders of Iran called us a one-bomb country. I think it was Rafsanjani.
Yeah.
So we did what we had to do. We accomplished in 3 days air superiority over the IRGC, something that Russia has not accomplished in 3 years over Ukraine. A lot of preparation, a lot of thinking, a lot of intelligence, a lot of cooperation, and I would say a lot of cooperation on the ground. This could not have happened with the brave Iranians on the ground who understand that this cannot continue. This attempt to eradicate the state of Israel and the theocracy and tyranny of the mullah regime.
Talking about the tyranny, a lot of Iranians are frightened that the regime is wounded now. And now that the United States and Israel are leaving, there's a ceasefire, they might be the ones who will pay the ultimate price.
I understand them. I understand what it means to be afraid. But I'm also a student of history, and I know that the change begins with the ability to overcome fear. We were deathly afraid on October 7th. 1,200 of our people were slaughtered in hours, men, women, and children. But the Prime Minister took a decision. He said, we are no longer going to live like this. We're not going to live with people who want to eradicate us on our borders. And it was not an easy decision, because fear could have overcome us. And that's exactly what Sinwar wanted to accomplish, to make us so afraid. That's what terror does. It's to inflict fear. It's not just to kill, but it's to kill in such a way as to inflict fear. And we had to overcome our fear. And the Prime Minister said, we are not going to live like this anymore. And who could have imagined that?
But you had the upper hand. You are a sovereign state with a military. Mm-hmm. Ordinary people in Iran don't have the resources that the state of Israel has.
Well, you know, there are many precedents in history. I understand what you're saying, and I'm not saying that it's an easy road, you know, to overcome tyranny. But I do remember the precedents of Romania. I remember a horrific tyranny under Ceausescu, and the people just changed the tune. They came out to the streets while he was speaking on the balcony.
Right after his trip to Tehran.
Right after his trip to Tehran. And, you know, in the middle of the demonstration, which was supposed to be support for the tyrant, they changed the chants. And it was a matter of days before he was gone. So we can't make that our agenda. We're not into regime change. That's not our business.
But that was the message we were getting from the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister, and the actions that we were seeing on the ground when you were hitting the doors of Evin prison, when you were hitting the Sarallah headquarters in Tehran. Everyone was translating that, okay, this is no longer a military objective, this is no longer Iranian missile program or nuclear program, this is regime change. What changed?
No, nothing changed. We have military and war goals. And that was, as I said before, to diminish to the point of obliterating the path to nuclear bomb and diminishing to the point of eliminating the ballistic missile threat. Those are the goals of the war. Now, does that mean that we don't go to sleep every night with a prayer in our hearts for the Iranian people? Would we not like to see regime change? Would we not like to see the glorious past of Persia coming to life again with the glorious people of Iran? Of course we would. But you can't force regime change top down. We saw that experience the United States had in various countries. It's very problematic. If you want to implement democracy, democracy means the rule of the people. So the people have to make that choice, and the people have to rise up and say, we want regime change. We're certainly going to support it in every way we can. But militarily, no. War cannot bring regime change. It doesn't work. So you have the complete support of the Israeli people. I don't think there's any, there are few things that unite Israelis, but change in Iran is one of them. That certainly unites us. We want to visit Tehran. We want Iranians to come in Jerusalem and enjoy Israel. We want that exchange. We had that exchange, you know? We had that exchange in history. The interaction between Judaism and Zoroastrianism, for example, is a riveting part of epistemology, the development of ideas and how knowledge is created. There was a tremendous interaction there on an intellectual level, on a spiritual level between our two peoples. You know, if we think back about, I think Cyrus is the only non-Jewish figure in the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, and he appears, by the way, in 3 different books in the Bible, in Isaiah, in Chronicles, and Ezra. And he's referred to as a Messiah. He's referred to as a envoy of God, envoy of the divine. Nobody else has that stature in the Hebrew Bible. So the affinity that we feel with the Iranian people is very close, is very dear. And by the way, I mean, Cyrus is the one who gave the order to return to Jerusalem, for the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. So, you know, and then more recently, we had trade. We had intensive trade. I mean, there was travel between our two countries. Why can't we have that come back again? You know, you have a space program. The mullahs have a space program. Now, we all know what it is, right? It's a program to develop ICBMs, right? Intercontinental ballistic missiles. It's called a space program. We have a real space program with the UAE. Why can't we have a space program together with you, Fardad? Why can't we do that? We can, if we move into a mode where the tyranny of Tehran is no longer intending to eliminate us. It's that simple.
There are a lot of questions from our viewers, which I'm going to go to in a second, and obviously we have a very distinguished guest here. I want to hear their questions as well. But before going to our audience, I want to ask you the million-dollar question. Is this the end now, the ceasefire?
Is this the end? I think it was a great Sufi Persian poet, Rumi, who said, "Be like a tree, let the dead leaves fall." So if we let the dead leaves fall and move to a new spring, it may very well be the beginning, not the end. That's what we have to hope for. You know, we live in a world that's all post, you know, post-structuralism, post-modernism. We have to introduce a world that's pre. Pre what? Pre-normalization, pre-peace, pre-sanity, right? Why can't we have that? Why can't we go into an era which is the beginning of the dignity of difference? We maintain our differences, right? But we see dignity in the differences between us. That's what we're hoping for.
But militarily, is it the end? Have you achieved all your objectives? Because Iran is saying they still have their enriched uranium. Their missile program is still there.
Yeah, we know a lot of times in diplomacy that words take the place of real action and real deed. Look, I'll ask you the question. The mullahs spent $500 billion on their nuclear program. Can we get our minds around that number? $500 billion. Now, what if they took that money and instead of embarking on a path to weapons, to destroy, they would have built your educational system. They would have built your sanitation system. They would have purified your water. You wouldn't have problems with your electricity and power, right? You would have benefited the 90 million people of Iran. And in addition to $500 billion on a nuclear program, spent $700 million on Hezbollah. For what? $15 billion went to Assad. Where is he now? In some summer house outside of Moscow? Right? $15 billion of your money. Where is that? Not to mention $200 million to Hamas, to Sinwar, to a man who prepared the butchery of innocent people. So are they going to do that again? Yeah, they may pay some lip service now, but are they going to do that again? Are the people of Iran really going to allow them to do it again? I bet on the people of Iran, not on the mullahs.
I don't want to be the only one who's asking a question. I want to hear from the audience as well. If anyone has, please go ahead, Mr. Sami, with the microphone.
Good morning, Mr. Ambassador. My name is Shayan Sami'i. I'm a national security analyst for Iran International, but I'm not here to talk on that capacity. What I want to bring to you is a message from the people of Iran. The people are concerned that when the President of the United States, on one hand, says the Islamic Republic is a state sponsor of terror and is a menace to the region, and on the other hand, says, God bless Iran, and let's make peace, and let's make a deal, and let's have a ceasefire, because we have achieved our goals. And on the other hand, when Minister Katz says Khamenei has lost his life, his right to live, and Minister Gamliel states that Israel's mission will complete when the regime is no longer in power. But when the people of Iran see this talk of ceasefire, they're confused. They don't know what to believe. So on behalf of them who have messaged me and asked me to bring this to you, what is the goal? What is the next step? Because the people are afraid that when mullahs are in power and they are wounded now, they will do unto the people of Iran the things that we haven't seen the likes of it. So how could Israel and the United States unite in giving the people of Iran the message that we are behind you? You mentioned to my dear friend Farahzad that Iranian people will have to rise up themselves. I understand that. But when, as the saying goes, that when the enemy has all the military power and you only have a couple of stones to throw, you're not going to achieve your objectives. So please help assuage the people of Iran's mindset that the world leaders are saying stuff from both sides of their mouths, but they're not taking into consideration that if mullahs are left in power, they will do much more damage to the people of Iran. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate your question, and I identify with your question. I don't think I have an answer that's fully going to satisfy you and the people who addressed that question to you, because the situation is very complicated. You know the bandwidth in the United States right now for anything that even smacks of regime change. Very small bandwidth. The ability for Israel to act on itself for regime change is extremely limited. What we are doing is, I think, advancing the cause of liberty to a great degree. In our efforts to secure ourselves, we are moving the region into a greater effort of liberty. It takes time. Who could have imagined a year and a half ago that the proxies of Iran, which were created to destroy us, this was a ring of fire, this was the imagination of Soleimani, to create a ring of fire where Hamas would attack us from the south, the Houthis would attack us with missiles, Hezbollah would attack us from the north, the militias in Syria and Iraq would attack us at the same time, and the mullahs would fire ballistic missiles all at the same time, so our reservists couldn't get out of Tel Aviv to get to the south and get to the north. Now, Sinwar jumped the gun, and the prime minister, once he made this decision that we're not going to live like this anymore, went in a calculated cadence to destroy this ring of fire and then get to the nuclear program itself in Iran. Who could have imagined, that Assad wouldn't be in Damascus any longer? Who could imagine that now we have a government in Lebanon which is actually telling Hezbollah, don't you fire one missile, we're going to disarm you. And actually General Aoun is acting to disarm Hezbollah. There's a lot of fear that he had to overcome, okay? I think there's a lot of fear that many agents in the region have to overcome. And I don't know how, far be it from me to imagine how the good people of Tehran and all over Iran could overcome fear. All I know is that I have dear, dear friends. I have a mentor who taught me a lot of what I know, who's a Mashhadi. I love him like I love an older brother. And I know the willpower that he has. It's a willpower that's rooted in a 4,000-year history. And I have a lot of faith that with these changes that we couldn't have imagined a short time ago, that there's going to be continued change. There's going to be change within Iran as well. How exactly, that exact map of how it's going to happen, I can't tell you. I don't think anyone knew how the Soviet Union would collapse. But there's a cadence to history. Tyranny will not ultimately survive. When Francis Fukuyama wrote 30 years ago that we're at the end of history and there's a deliberate march towards democracy and it can't go back, I think he was premature, right? We know that he was premature. But at the same time, I think we can agree that that's where we're marching towards. Premature, but it's going to happen. Because at the end of the day, it's what the people want, okay? And I think back of the particularly in Iran, when I think back of the Cyrus Cylinder, one of the first human rights charters in the world, which gave satraps, which gave the regions, the provinces, liberty, a certain degree of autonomy. Okay, so it wasn't the Declaration of Independence, but it was damn good. So will the Iranian people find that Cyrus Cylinder anew? I think so. I don't know how, but I think so. I believe so.
Navid, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much. My name is Navid. I'm a DC-based Iran analyst. I'm saying this as a friend of the State of Israel. I am concerned that Israeli government has suffered enormous reputational damage in the eyes of many Iranians. The reason is that even though the Israeli government officially stated that the goal is not regime change, but when you follow many Israeli talking heads, many Israeli ministers, many Israeli media personalities who are very close to the state of Israel, and even like the wife of Prime Minister of Israel, posted so many, content on social media. Israel has intentionally created a kind of expectation that regime change is coming, or at least they are going to pave the way for the Iranian people to liberate themselves. But it didn't happen. If your goal was not regime change, how could you not manage your public messaging about this? Because as a friend of Israel, I'm very concerned that next time Israeli foreign ministry in Persian, they're going to say, we are standing with the Iranian people, and it's very hard for Iranians to trust Israel again. If there's no plan B, I don't know, I'm not aware of it, but I'm seeing the kind of expectation that was created, and so many Iranians have been arrested in Iran, over thousands, and the regime is going to unleash its revenge and anger on Iranian people. How are you going to repair that relationship between Iranian people? They're not going to become anti-Semite overnight, no. It's about trust and collaboration, and the kind of expectation that you have created. I know you're going to say regime change wasn't the goal, but just look at the social media. Look at what Israeli ministers are talking about. They have egged on many Iranians, and they didn't follow through. That's something that I'm very concerned, and my question is, how are you going to repair that relationship?
Well, I'll tell you, as an analyst, if you have any solution to how to control public messaging in a democracy, please share it with me. Because government officials, I mean, that's part of our robust democracy. People don't for one moment think that everybody is, playing the same tune, even if they're sitting around the same government table. And at the same time, I will tell you this. There are so many people approaching government officials and saying, please say something. Please encourage us. So we're in this kind of cul-de-sac or in a vice grip where on the one hand, we want very much to embrace the efforts towards regime change, towards the Iranians who want to see a dramatic change in their lives. On the other hand, we can't do it kinetically or militarily or in any real fashion of moving towards, marching on Tehran. We can't march on Tehran. It's just that simple. So I take what you're saying seriously, and I will convey the dilemma to my colleagues in the government. I will share it with the Prime Minister, and I will make them perhaps more aware of the tension that's being created and the problematic aspect of that tension. So perhaps they'll be more careful.
Do you think the Israeli government was expecting the regime to collapse in the first few days? When you hit all the IRGC leaders, when you were at least indicating that you might hit the supreme leader's house as well, were you expecting that Iranian do some sort of uprising and collapse the regime?
I don't think we were expecting it. I think it's very difficult. I mean, you have policy analysts here in the audience who have a wealth of experience. It's very hard to, prognosticate or to prophesize as to how things are going to play out. You never know for 100%. Was everybody hoping that would be the case?
But they were calling, at least former Prime Minister Bennett was asking Iranians to go to the streets and...
Well, I can't take responsibility for those who served past positions. There are many, politicians who need some airtime and, have...
But even Prime Minister Netanyahu was indicating...
Prime Minister Netanyahu was speaking as I spoke just now, with a tremendous passion and hope that the world will change and that the Iranian regime will change, and that's a wish, but that can't be a military goal. You can't establish democracy top down. I don't think, has it ever happened? I don't think you can do it. It doesn't work. Democracy is in of itself an expression of the people's will. So how can you ignore the people's will by forcing it? The will of the people has to be expressed. Now, how exactly we go about doing that, I don't know. I wish I knew. I wish I had a complete recipe that's worked. I think, though, that we've created the backdrop. We've created the props on the stage. And hopefully, they're enough for there to be capitalized upon and for change to be brought about.
I want to ask a couple of questions that our audience sent. I'm afraid most of them are quite similar to what our audience asked. A couple of people ask, how can the Israeli government assist the people of Iran without hurting them?
We don't want to hurt anybody. I mean, really.
But you did already, didn't you? I mean, there were so many casualties. Of course, the main targets were IRGC and Iranian officials, but many civilians died, many infrastructures are destroyed, and it doesn't seem that the regime is about to collapse, at least in the short term.
War is a terrible thing. There's collateral damage. I know firsthand just how difficult war is. You're talking to someone who lost his oldest son in the war in Gaza. I'm still mourning for him. I carry him on my heart every day. He was my pride and joy. So I know what pain is. But we have to be able to channel pain into perseverance and to persistence. I feel for innocent people's lives who were taken, but we're fighting a war for our survival, and we're targeting military targets. That was our purpose. The supply chain for the nuclear production sites, the supply chain for the ballistic missiles. It's a tragedy, but I can tell you something. I went through the IDF. All of my boys are in the IDF. I lost a son in the IDF. I know what their orders are. And their orders are to do everything to prevent collateral damage. We do as much, pinpoint striking as any army in the world. So it pains me that there's innocent life lost, but that certainly was not our intent. The intent of the mullahs is to actually target our civilian population centers. You know, the family killed this morning were sitting in their bomb shelter with a direct hit of a missile directed at, very close to Soroka Hospital, again. So,
But I'm sure you see it from the Iranian opposition's perspective, the ones even inside Iran who want to overthrow the regime, that they understand that Israel may have achieved its objectives of limiting Iran's capability of launching more missiles towards Israel and limiting Iranians' capability of enriching uranium or building a nuclear weapon. Fair enough, good for Israel. But Iranians paid a heavy price, and now they are left with a government that is just as brutal as it's ever been.
we have a primary goal. The primary goal is to make sure that we exist. We're threatened with annihilation, and we have to remove that threat of annihilation, that black cloud from over our heads. We're not the only democracy in the world. Why is it that the Chancellor of Germany says Israel's doing the dirty work for all of us? We're a tiny little country. Where's Germany? Where's England? England has a huge stake, huge history in your neck of the woods.
But they don't feel an existential threat from the Iranian side.
Well, exactly. But they should feel an affinity for the people of Iran. They can feel an affinity for somebody who threatens an ally like Israel. And it's not just Israel. Where are the sleeper cells? Who created sleeper cells in Europe? Why is there fear now in the United States of sleeper cells? They have interfered with international waterways, okay, with globalization, with maritime trade. Okay, they've gotten in the way of, they've supported the Houthis, who are firing on maritime ships. Okay, they have supported terror cells throughout Europe and around the world. They have destabilized the Sahel in Africa. They've destabilized the triangle in South America. So Israel's the only one? Are we the world's policeman? Please. I would say to the Chancellor of Germany, you're absolutely right. We're doing the dirty work for the world, but it's about time that you helped us. And if they did, it would be a lot easier for the people of Iran. It's very easy to come to Israel and say, well, you went so far, why don't you go a little further? Let's come to the countries of the world for whom democracy is important and say you have a minority government with its boot on the necks of good people, of innocent people, of tens of millions of people. We're not alone. We shouldn't be alone in this.
One of our viewers asked, what is the long-term strategy between Israel and the United States regarding Iran?
Again, we're not in the position to make a long-term strategy for another country. Our long-term strategy is to stay alive. Look, people ask me very often, your prime minister said for so many years they're a threshold nuclear bomb state, right? And they were showing how he made that speech in 2011 and 2012 and 2014, and see, it never really happened. Those who were arguing against a military strike. Right? Well, if it wasn't so sad, it would actually be very funny. There is a combustible point, right? There's a point of combustion. So it doesn't happen for 15 years, but then it could happen, right? Or like the head of the CIA said, if you march 99 yards down the football field, the next yard is to get into the end zone. But I say something a little different. Hitler started talking about menacing his neighbors in 1923. And it took him exactly 15 years. When he had the military and the political power, he began to invade his neighbors. And he wasn't stopped for the same reason that today there were those who wanted to stop our military intervention. Because they said, it'll lead to a war that'll never end.
But those
And
who
one
are
second, but 1 second. We didn't stop them. We didn't stop them, and it led to a war in which 65 million people were killed, and 6 million of our people were gassed in ovens. Okay? So sometimes you need to embark on a military action in order to prevent war. That's where we're going. I think we're going, this is a war to engender peace. And I think we're moving there. How it's going to happen internally in Iran, I don't have a master plan. I don't think we could have a master plan. But certainly, there's going to be the moral support for that to happen. And look, they've been degraded. It could go in the way that you're saying, that because they're degraded and they're a wounded animal, that they're going to respond viciously. It could work differently. It could work very differently.
You compared the Iranian regime with Nazi Germany, and a lot of people who were opposed this war to begin with, and not only people who support the regime, there are many other Iranians who are against the regime but were also against the war, would ask, well, in Nazi Germany, they attacked their neighboring countries. Iran didn't provoke Israel. Iran was about to negotiate with the United States on Sunday. What was the legal base of this war to begin with?
Really? Iran hasn't attacked their neighbors? I mean, that's a good one.
They didn't attack Israel.
Why? They've been attacking Israel for decades. What is the Ring of Fire? What does it mean attacking Israel? Why do you give $200 million to the Hamas? Why do you give $15 billion to Assad? Why do you give $700 million to the Hezbollah? Why do you support terrorism against Israel? Who attacked the?
But this is continuing. Your objective seems to have been for
who said it's continuing? Wait, I don't know if it's continuing. But imagine all of that happening. Imagine we had to contend with the mullah's proxies operating under a nuclear umbrella. We wouldn't have been able to contend with it. So we had to stop this march towards a nuclear bomb. It's just very simple. It's not very complicated. We can't have a regime that says, I'm going to destroy you with a nuclear bomb. If they didn't say we're going to destroy you, they could have pursued a path of...
President Trump today morning said, he said, Israel doesn't know what the F they're doing. United States was negotiating with Iran for its nuclear program. Didn't you interrupt the diplomatic process of U.S. and Iran?
Well, obviously not, because the president, you have to follow all the president's tweets. Just a piece of advice, having dealing with the White House now for 6 months. Follow them all, because together they form a concert. Alone, they're a one-instrument band. And the president said Friday morning, after we initiated the attack, that he knew in detail what it was about and why. He supported us entirely. And look, I mean, the president gave the order to fly B-2s and take out Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. So, yes, there may be...
Was that part of the deal, that the U.S. will attack Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, but Israel has to accept the ceasefire?
No. I mean, the ceasefire...
that wasn't the condition of the United States
There were no
involvement?
no conditions. The level of cooperation, collaboration between our administrations, between the Prime Minister and the President personally, between our administrations and between our armies is like the highest it's ever been. It's very, very, very close.
I want to take some more questions from the audience. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. My name is Mariam Sadeghi, and my question relates to a statement that President Trump made just moments ago about that he looks forward to seeing this regime being a trading partner, is opening up the possibility again for China to freely purchase Iranian oil. And my question is, do you worry that the regime will continue to be an existential threat to Israel, and maybe even more so because now that this nuclear program has been dealt with, there is an opening to normalization. There's an opening to financial trade, and that maybe even Trump is going to be less supportive of any kind of aggressive action against the proxies of the regime.
I'd be, how should I say it? I believe that people mean what they say, And if the Ayatollahs and the people around them continue to talk about death to America, death to Israel, that is naturally not going to mesh with a vision of normalization and Abraham Accords and the removal of sanctions. I mean, look, the president, and I can't speak for the president, I don't want to speak for the president, it's not my job, I speak for the prime minister and the government of Israel. But this president has clamped the most serious sanctions on Iran, on the government of Iran, that haven't existed for at least 4.5 years, since he left office in 2020. So I don't think that President Trump is someone who is easily fooled or cajoled or manipulated. And if the regime stays in power in some form or another and maintains this route towards, menacing its neighbors, it's not going to be accepted. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. We didn't invest in all of this military activity just to see it reversed. And the prophets of doom who say, well, we didn't set it back too long, and we set it back for many, 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 many years, even on the assumption that they'll stay in power and once again try to reconstitute the plans. It's going to take many, many, many years and many, many billions of dollars, which I don't think they're going to have.
One of our viewers asked, is there a concern that chaos would follow regime collapse? And was that maybe one of the reasons you didn't pursue the regime collapse, that you were worried about a major chaos in Iran?
Again, we cannot foresee or plan how a country changes its method of government. It takes different forms in different cultures at different times in history. Our focus was removing the existential threat. How it unravels now, we have to be vigilant. We have to maintain our moral clarity. We have to retain our support where it belongs, and hope for the best. We have to have contingencies. We have to have a number of contingencies. I think the West as a whole, not Israel alone. Israel alone has to focus on its existential question. Who is threatening it, and how is that threat removed?
During the attacks, there were some cyber attacks as well. One of our viewers asked, was Israel behind the recent attacks on Nobitex crypto exchange? A lot of people lost a lot of money in that exchange company. A lot of cryptocurrency was stolen. Was Israel behind that?
I have no idea about any cyber attack. I know that my phone has been attacked by Iranian hackers. I submitted it to get checked, and it was traced back to a regime hacker. So I don't know about the cyber attacks, and certainly it wasn't intended, if anybody did attack, to affect innocent people.
A lot of people,
or maybe it was by Iranian hackers.
Yeah.
It could be, the Soviets did that kind of thing very often. They would malevolently affect their own citizens and then say it was the West who did it. So who knows?
There's no way to prove.
There's no way to prove it. No.
Everyone, I think, was impressed, regardless of where they stand, by the level of intelligence penetration inside Iran. One of our viewers also asked, how effective are Israeli intelligence operations in Iran? How could you be so deeply embedded into every corner of the Iranian structure? Everyone was fascinated by that. It seems like even a few days after the attacks, someone in their home, in a remote place in Tehran, were targeted in their bedroom.
So how do you think? I mean, what would your guess? I think the answer is in the question. And I think it goes back to the original question about how to overcome fear. There are many, many Iranians that are overcoming fear right now. They've overcome fear in the past. They've worked in close tandem with forces of good. And they will continue to do so. And I think they're going to be more emboldened
But it took you many years, maybe decades, to build that infrastructure in Iran. Aren't you worried that they're going to do a major cleanup and the access will be extremely limited now?
Worry is the interest paid on trouble before it becomes due. Why worry? You have to persevere, move forward with what's right.
Gentlemen, here, please.
Thank you, Ambassador Leiter. I had a question regarding, we've seen a lot of reports of IRGC family members and members of the IRGC themselves fleeing Tehran. Can you give us more clarity on the level of internal dissent within the regime, how many desertions there have been, whether, how this could possibly contribute to an uprising?
Generally speaking, what we've seen is a breakdown in the chain of command within the IRGC. There was a number of decapitations on different levels, which created a certain degree of chaos within the command. And obviously that would result in people, departing their positions. The extent of it, I can't tell you. I don't have the intel from yesterday. If I did, I couldn't share it with you. But it's natural that under these circumstances, there would be those who would say enough is enough. And we hope that that circle of people would expand and would create a greater orbit of those who are saying, I'm going to join those who have shed fear and are siding with those who want to see a different future for Iran.
I think everyone agrees that operationally you were extremely successful in Iran. You had pretty much the superiority over Iranian airspace. But Iran did some damage to Israel as well. A lot of missiles were launched. A lot of people were killed, even until a few hours before the ceasefire, just minutes before the ceasefire. One of our viewers asked, could this external pressure unite the regime's base now?
I'm sorry, I'm not following. Unite the regime's base in Iran?
In Iran, that, okay, we survived this, and maybe they will get even more support from inside Iran. Aren't you worried about that? Because they will say, we survived the Israeli attack, we attacked them back, we attacked the United States base in Qatar, we are the winner. That's what they're saying on the Iranian state TV. We won this war.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably answer that question better than I can. I can just, based on history, I don't think that's the dynamic. I think everybody understands deep down that, this was very lopsided. The response in Qatar was kind of like, let's go out and plant flowers more than a real military attack. So,
but symbolically,
it was symbolic. It was symbolic. There were symbolic attacks. Of course, we lost people. There's no question about that. We lost some 30 people to ballistic missiles. But there's no question that we haven't been decimated. The Iranian military has been decimated. The IRGC has been decimated. The Ayatollah looks to his left, and there's no more nuclear scientists left. He looked to his right, and there's no more generals in the IRGC left. So, we've taken out the vast majority of the missile launchers. We've taken out the vast majority of the medium-range ballistic missiles themselves. We've taken out the production capacity for ballistic missiles and for the nuclear components. So, and not to mention the American strike on Fardad, Natanz, and Isfahan. First time that the 30,000-pound bomb has been used in warfare, and quite successfully. So, I don't think that people are going to get the impression that this was a game of ping pong.
I think everyone agrees that the Iranian regime will change in some capacity, for better or for worse. What's your prediction? What the Iranian regime 2.0 will look like?
I don't make predictions. I don't make predictions. I listen to people, to analysts and to commentators. One of the most fascinating things that I've experienced is coming to Washington. Everybody always asks me, what surprised you coming to Washington? The biggest surprise I've had is listening to commentators who know absolutely nothing about what actually happened in a closed room, create a narrative, and then pass commentary on the narrative they created. Yeah. So, I look in awe at people who actually make a living from calling their fiction national nonfiction. So I can't make predictions. I can just say on the basis of history that I think we are moving towards an era of greater freedom, of a greater people sovereignty. I think that that's been helped, facilitated by what we've done. And I hope and pray the day comes very soon that we're going to see a Middle East move towards Abraham Accords 2.0. There's no reason why we need a country menacing its neighbors. And if that message has gotten across, then we have done a great service to humanity. I hope that's the case. There's no guarantees in international relations. You know, when you study international relations, they give you paradigms, you know, all these paradigms. Does it fit into this paradigm or to that paradigm? It doesn't work that way. There's a soul, there's a national will. If we refer to Hegel for a moment, there are things that go beyond the structural paradigms in international relations. It's very hard to predict, but I'm confident that we're moving in the right direction.
There were a lot of talks about who will lead the future of Iran if the regime collapses. Do you see the capacity in the Iranian opposition and diaspora to take over?
Far be it from me to pass judgment on the Iranian diaspora.
But I'm sure you have your own judgment about it.
I would just say one thing that I think is probably the most important point that can be made. There is strength in unity. There is strength in unity. And the disunity is the most debilitating thing that there is. The reason why we've been successful in our military operations is because of the country coming together. The reason why we suffered so terribly, these attacks prior to that, was because of our disunity. We know it from our own skin. When we're disunited within our country, we suffer. When we come together, you know, my son always used to say, he said, "Dad, I've got the whole spectrum of politics in my unit, from left to right, and everybody's united in one goal, protecting and defending our people." And to the degree that we can find unity and harmony among those who are united in change, but they see change differently, you know, come together in change and then discuss at the ballot box what that change is going to look like. But come together in unity.
I want to get one more question from the audience, please.
You said that you believe that the Iranian nuclear program has been set back many, many years. I wonder, just on a very specific point, what is known, if anything, about whether or not Iran has been successful in putting together a third secret enrichment facility that's actually operational?
There have been some rumors about a secret location. We're not aware of those rumors, and of the legitimacy of those rumors, of the accuracy. And it may very well have been a promotion by those who wanted to avoid kinetic activity over Iran, with the argument that it won't help anyway. But we'll see as time plays out as to whether or not that's the case. We don't believe it to be the case at this point.
What do you think will be the impact of this short war on Iranian proxies? Do you think they are weakened now as a result of this attack?
The Iranian proxies?
Hezbollah in particular, and Houthis, and all those who are attacking Israel.
Well, why look into the future? Let's just look at this 12-day war. We had a 12-day war. Hezbollah is still sitting on tens of thousands of missiles. They didn't fire one. So obviously they've been dramatically degraded. We have a government in Beirut that is warning them to behave. We have a government in Beirut that's committed to disarming Hezbollah and is proceeding day by day to do so. We'd like it to move a little faster, but they're committed to the principle of disarming Hezbollah. We have a government in Damascus now that's removed itself entirely from the Iranian orbit, from the mullah's orbit, and at least is talking nicely, is saying the right things. We want to give it a little bit of time and make sure that, you know, somebody who was a jihadi yesterday is really becoming a Jeffersonian tomorrow. Or we're looking forward to that. But in the meantime, he's saying the right things and he's doing most of the right things. And if he could bring that country together, I mean, we're talking about change. I mean, just look at the change that's taking place there. It's mind-boggling. So if we see the change there, we can imagine. I think the first thing of getting beyond fear is, like I said before about Rumi's dead leaves. Get beyond the past. Let the dead leaves fall. Let the buds turn into new leaves. Be in sync with change. And it's going to happen. Believe in change. Imagine change. And it can happen. And you know, the amazing thing about the Abraham Accords was, there was a paradigm, a set paradigm for 30 years. Israel's got to go back to 1967, and then everything will be fine. Or Israel's got to be eliminated and everything will be fine because that's the cause of all the ills in the Middle East. And suddenly the Abraham Accords came along, and Israel didn't go back to 1967. And we have a space program with the UAE. And we have tourists going back and forth to Morocco. And we have a tremendous relationship with Bahrain, who also was a victim of Iranian meddling, mullah meddling. And if there wouldn't be a civil war in Sudan, I think we'd be doing an awful lot in the realm of food security. We have so much to give in Africa. We have all the solutions to food insecurity. You know, 850 million people go to sleep every night hungry. Why? Why? In a 5-kilometer radius of Tel Aviv, we have all the solutions to food insecurity, from water purification to seed strength, right? To strands of seeds that withstand the elements, to greenhouse technology, okay? To fertilizer technology. Everything is there. We can change the world. Imagine that we change the world together. We take our civilizations, we take the glorious civilization of Iran, we take the glorious civilization of the Jewish people, we come together and we change the world. We change the Middle East. We end this scourge of hunger. Why in this age are almost 1 billion people going to sleep hungry? We can end this. We can end this thing. Why should we have a regime in the Middle East producing drones to kill Ukrainians? What does that mean? Why? For what? What is that going to accomplish? We can move into a different era. We just have to imagine that change is possible, and change will happen.
Do you think if it wasn't for October 7, Israel would have attacked Iran?
Israel did not attack Iran. I would change the syntax. Iran has been attacking Israel now for 3 decades. And we
have to understand, but if it wasn't for October 7th, would this
particular
war
strike,
started?
this particular strike, this 12-day war in order to eliminate the nuclear threat, the answer is yes. Because the attempt to annihilate Israel is multi-pronged. It's the proxies, it's the ballistic missiles, and the nuclear bomb. So, you know, as I said before, Rafsanjani said that we are a one-bomb country. We had to eliminate the nuclear threat, even without the proxies. But when we take the proxies into account, obviously we had to eliminate that threat as well. And here's the genius of the Prime Minister. He went step after step after step. There were those who said right after the massacre of October 7th, we have to go after Hezbollah at the same time. He said, wait, we're going to deal with Hamas, then we're going to deal with Hezbollah, we're going to see how change comes about, and then we're going to deal with Iran. But we can't forget that we had very hard intel over the past several months, that they were going to sprint forward to actually weaponize high-grade uranium. We were on the cusp of that. And you know, the president has vindicated our position several times. So we had no choice to do that. But we, at the same time, have to deal with the proxies, the ballistic missiles, and the nuclear threat.
We are pretty much close to the end of the debate. I want to see if there is any other questions from the audience, if someone wants to ask questions.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
If please God, we see change come about, and Iran International is broadcasting from Tehran openly and freely, will you invite me for an interview?
Of course I would. Would you join the interview? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. Thanks.
Good to be with you.
Great to be with you.
We pray together for good news.
What do you think will happen next before I let you go?
I think there's going to be days of discussion maybe confusion, but I think we're marching towards a very promising future. And what I just described and the hope that I just described, I think is going to happen sooner than later.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you.